Okay. Okay, let's call roll. Commissioner Albertson.
Here.
Commissioner Little.
Here.
Commissioner Sunday.
Here.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Laurenhurst. Lawrenson.
Here.
Okay. If the commission doesn't mind, I can just serve as the presiding officer and run through the hearing process and handle everything if I see nods of agreement. And I'll go ahead and handle that for the city. As I said, my name is Dave Kinney. I'm a planning consultant for the city, and I work for a number of communities in Oregon and serving as their planning consultant or project management consultant. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to consider a public hearing for City of Halsey Land Use File 2025-20, which is an application by Jason East to do a development at 1015 2nd Street in Halsey along Highway 99 East at the intersection of I Street, J Street. And I will run through a process and script that I go through, and then commissioners can follow along. This is a public hearing to consider the Land Use File 2520, an application from Jason East for approval of a site design review for the development of the drive-through coffee kiosk and a food cart pod at 1015 West 2nd Street in Halsey. And a copy of the agenda and the hearing procedures are on the little table in the hallway. If you haven't picked one up, you're free to get one. The hearing is now open. The Planning Commission will consider the application, any written or oral testimony that members in the audience or people who have or agencies have submitted to the city prior to the meeting, and the criteria that are listed in the city's staff report for the application. Any testimony, arguments, or evidence that's submitted, including oral testimony, that's received during the public hearing needs to be addressed to the application and the approval criteria and the site plan that's been submitted. If you also believe that any other law or regulation applies, you should mention that during your testimony. If you have any questions or objections regarding the information that's been provided or the application, please raise those questions when it's your time to testify to the Planning Commission. And when you testify, if you could do a couple things that makes it much easier for Brianna, who's doing the hearing minutes after the meeting, if you give your name and your address, if you're in favor, whether you're opposed, or if you just have general questions, you can say, I just have a question to raise before the Planning Commission. And it's a small group, so if you can limit your testimony to 3 to 5 minutes or address particular things, that allows us to go through the hearing process relatively quickly and be able to keep the meeting at a reasonable time frame. So at this point, I'm going to ask the Planning Commission members and the audience a couple questions. First one, are there any objections to the notice of public hearing that was sent out related to this application? And I don't see any objections, so there are none. Are there any objections to the Planning Commission's jurisdiction and ability to consider the case? And under the city's land use rules, an application for a site review is filed at City Hall and goes to the Planning Commission to make a decision. And I don't see any objections. So Planning Commission commissioners, I'll now turn my questions to you and ask, are there any declarations of conflict of interest, which would be a financial conflict of interest, or you're within the notice area of the proposal? Any ex parte contact or any bias that's related to the application? And the easiest way to do this is actually to go commissioner by commissioner. So Commissioner Lawrenson, do you have any conflicts of interest or bias?
No, I do not.
Okay, Commissioner Jones,
No, I do not.
Commissioner Albertson,
No, I do not.
Commissioner Little,
No.
and Commissioner Sunday.
No, I do not.
Thank you all for doing that. At this point, we'll go through the hearing agenda and everyone has an opportunity to provide testimony. The first thing we'll ask for is the applicant to make a brief presentation. We've got a copy of the proposal up on the screen and he can describe the project, explain what he's proposing. I will then do a staff report and whether it addressing the city ordinance and requirements for any development. And then we'll open it up to public testimony for people in favor, people opposed, and then general questions. And then at the end, the applicant will have an opportunity to address any of the comments. I'll try to answer all the questions that have been brought up during the hearing. And the planning commission will have an opportunity to ask questions of both the applicant and any member of the audience if there are issues that come up. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. East and let him do a brief presentation to the planning commission.
Hello, my name is Jason East. The other person on the land is my oldest son, Zach. And I've been an electrician for 27 years. And I now live in Halsey. And my son, who's on the plan, also lives in Halsey. And I noticed that property for sale quite a while ago and decided to grab it and wanted to improve also. And then also I've been an electrician for all of the state of Oregon for Dutch Brothers for 15 years now. So I do know how to do electrical work. I got to know them pretty well. So I thought it would be a great idea to help my family to make a coffee shop. And plus all of that, I didn't know what to do with the other part of the land. So I figured a food cart business might bring a lot more people and different eating habits, whatever. I just figured it would be a cute and easy thing to do on this main street.
Just a couple of quick questions. When do you plan on putting the coffee shop in and when do you plan on developing the rest of the site?
Well, I've been paying for everything outright so far. So after all the engineering and planning and then realizing how much all the sewer and water and all that, it's probably going to take another year to actually get a building up and running for the coffee shop. I would assume that later on the food cart business will sit empty until one gets rented out. It will be rented out per month for whoever gets approved for the application. But the coffee shop itself will probably be ran by me, family members, and maybe a couple employees. So I'm expecting maybe a year, or another year to get up.
So Ken, I don't know if you were able to hear those answers, but Jason indicated that it'll take about a year to develop the coffee shop portion of the site and the food carts will take a little bit longer.
We got that.
Okay, any questions for Mr. East from Planning Commission members?
I don't, not me.
Not at this point. Okay. So again, I'll run through the staff report. The application was submitted to the city and we had originally scheduled the public hearing for earlier this month and then it was delayed for a couple of reasons that I hadn't completed the staff report and I think there was a notice issue in terms of providing information to adjacent property owners and the agencies. This application falls under the city's site review process under the Halsey Development Code, and the property is zoned commercial. A development of a coffee kiosk or drive-through coffee stand is a permitted use, as well as a food cart pot is also a permitted use for the commercial properties that are located along Highway 99 East. The applicant has to comply with the basic zoning standards, which set the size of the buildings, setbacks, development standards for water, sewer, street improvements, as well as for site improvements such as parking and drainage, and extension of utilities into the property. The property also must meet certain landscape requirements and design requirements for the site at time of development. The applicant has retained an engineer, Udell Engineering out of Lebanon, who's drafted the engineering plans and the site plan for the project. And I've had an opportunity to talk to Brian Vendetta, who is the project engineer, several times, and he's not available tonight to participate in the meeting in person, but is available in case there's any engineering questions that come up during the testimony. My conclusion in the staff report, I went through all of the individual development code requirements and whether or not the proposal complies or does not comply. Generally, the application complies with the development standards for the basic zoning requirements, the siting of the building, and for development of the on-site public improvements. The city sent out notices to local agencies, including the Oregon Department of Transportation, the local utilities, Elyrica, and Pacific Corps, as well as to the local fire department. ODOT responded that as long as they do not change the location of the existing driveway, which is what the proposal is to leave it in place, that no additional improvements are required along Highway 99 East since it was just upgraded within the last couple of years. Number two was the street improvements and access on the city street, which is J Street on the side. The city engineer reviewed the application and concurred with my staff findings that the frontage improvements, which includes extending the sidewalk, adding curb and gutter, as well as doing pavement widening in front of this site, is appropriate and needs to be completed as part of this project. In addition, the applicant has to connect to the city's water and sewer. There is still some exploration work that needs to be done to find the exact end of the sewer line where they can connect, but the sewer is available to the site. One question that was in the city engineer's report and was posed to the fire district was whether or not there needed to be additional upsizing of the water main, or if the existing fire hydrant that's at the corner of 3rd and J Street was close enough and within proximity to be able to serve the development. The existing or the proposed coffee kiosk, which is a permanent structure, will be located within 500 feet of that fire hydrant, so it meets the city's fire code requirements. And the fire department's response was they did not have any concerns with the proposal as it was outlined. The Elyrica that has some utilities right close by, and we got a response from them that's not referenced in your packet and the staff report, which indicated that they had no concerns with the application. They've got a utility box that's right along the street next to the site, and as long as that's not disturbed or changed dramatically, they were to accept the project meets their requirements. At the very end of the staff report, there is a recommendation to the Planning Commission from me as the contract planner. And I've got a couple of minor changes to the recommendation from what's included in your packet. We got the written response from the city engineer's office that addresses the details of water, sewer, and street improvements. And so I would like to see the Planning Commission modify proposed condition number 1 to make sure that it says that the final engineering plans for the public improvements and the storm drainage facilities must be approved by the city engineer, and the applicant's engineer shall modify the final engineering plans to address a couple of the items that the city engineer mentioned about the storm drainage system. That is the only change. There are a series of recommended conditions of approval. If the Planning Commission concludes that the proposal complies with the requirements, one is that the applicant would be required to build the project as it's shown in the design and on the engineering plans. The expiration for the approval that I've drafted in here is that they would need to get a building permit for the construction of the on-site improvements for the coffee shop within 1 year. So that would be basically January 31st of 2027. It also delegates authority to the city administrator to, if for some reason financing becomes an issue or they have some difficulty in doing the development in phases, the city administrator will be able to grant a phasing of phase 2, let's say for the food pods. And typically that might be a 1-year extension if that would be needed. It's not written in there right now, but the opportunity is there if the issue comes up. There are several permits and agency approvals that need to be obtained. One is an access permit for the city for the driveway and to be able to construct the street and sidewalk improvements along J Street. Second is that if the applicant does not do the improvements in the public right of way before they do the coffee kiosk, they would need to provide some type of performance bond or financial guarantee that they're certifying that those improvements will be completed. That way the city is not stuck later if the improvements are not done. ODOT may or may not require a right-of-way construction permit. In their latest email, they indicated they would not require a permit as long as the driveway approach was not changed and there was no other work that occurs within the right-of-way, and the plans don't indicate that there is anything special that would require the permit. The street improvement list, I talked about the upgrades on J Street. Storm drainage improvements, the applicant's proposing a storm detention facility on the site. And the requirement is that storm detention facility be built and then it can slowly meter out the stormwater to a catch basin that's at the corner of 2nd Street and J Street. Water and sewer improvements will need to be installed, and that typically involves the installation of a new meter box, and backflow prevention device that would serve the entire site. I mentioned the sewer lateral, and we need to finalize the exact location of that, and that would be shown in the final engineering drawings. Parking improvements, the applicants proposed paving of the parking area, and today the applicants engineer indicated they would be adding fencing, which is, it showed fencing, but it didn't have the details. My understanding is there will be a cedar wood fence on the south boundary, and then there is a section of vinyl fence on the west boundary, and that would be extended along the west edge. And both of those are permitted under the city's fence code. Parking lot improvements. The one thing that's not real clear to me and will need to show up on the engineering plans is outdoor lighting. Depends on how the development of the food pod area is done. Any lights need to be dark sky, which means they're directing light downward, and they're not yard lights, which are shooting out and affecting the neighbors. If there are any complaints about yard lights, by including that in the condition of approval, it gives the city staff authority to go back out and say, fix it. Parking spaces, there's a minimum of 10 parking spaces that are required. The site plan actually shows, I think 9 on site, with 1 handicap space on site. And then there's room on J Street for 2 additional spaces outside along the curb edge away from the driveway approach. And the parking lot improvements need to be completed particularly for the coffee kiosk before they would be issued a certificate of occupancy for that coffee kiosk to make sure that there's easy traffic flow in and out and not creating a dust issue for the neighbors. Landscaping, fencing, and outdoor lighting improvements do need to be shown on that final plan. And that will include the planting of a couple street trees along Highway 99 if they're not there already, and at least 1 along J Street. And my recommendation to the Planning Commission is that the proposal be approved as drafted And let's see what the public has to say. If there are any changes we need to address, we can address that from the public comments. With that, that concludes my staff report, and now there's an opportunity for members of the public. Is there anyone from the audience who's here who would like to support the application and would like to testify in favor?
Yes.
You can also do it under as general testimony if you want.
I would like to see it, a business, expand and grow in the town.
And can you give,
The problem is,
can you give your name and
oh, my
address?
name is Silas Miller. I live across the street at 995 West Second Street. I look at it as with 8 food trucks, I get there's parking spots in there, but the J Street's gonna turn into a line of traffic on both sides of the street, and that's a little bit troublesome to me. I mean,
Eight would be enough for 8 people, 1 employee per parking spot.
but I don't wanna say, no, we can't, do this, cause like I say, I want, if he gets food trucks in there, I want it to grow and make money, but I guess that's because I live right there, it is gonna directly affect property value if this J Street turns into a parking lot, on both sides of the street. Cause I know people don't necessarily always pay attention when they're parking, and, that many trucks seems like potential of a lot of traffic. And that's the only concern that I have, but like I say, as somebody that wants to see Halsey grow, I'm not gonna try to stop it, but that's the concern.
And then I'm Jeremy Romer. I live at 287 West J Street, just to the west of the proposed project. And parking was a concern with me as well, with 8-10 spaces for parking and 8 food carts. Like Silas was saying, if everybody drives a car to work, where are they going to park? And so parking was my major concern, kind of an off tangential in the future potential concern that I had was we have these food cart setups there for electricity and water. If the food cart business didn't end up being profitable enough, I have seen, other areas along I-5, as I understand, RV parks are also commercially zoned. And if, that place, they'll already be set up for hookup, and I just don't want it to turn into an RV park. I'm okay with a coffee shop and food carts, like Silas mentioned. I think that'd be great. I think it's a good opportunity for Jason and for Halsey. And any, property issues that we have, I think we can work out between us most likely. But parking, and then I appreciate the effort you put in going through and making the plan, and, abiding by all the planning. I know it was a lot.
Everybody's gonna be that.
Yeah, I know it was a lot, so I appreciate that.
Any other testimony? Okay, I'll turn to the planning commission. Do you have any questions, either of any audience members or of the applicant?
I don't.
Okay. So the traffic question is probably the one that I was paying most attention to, and talked to the applicant and also checked in with ODOT on that. In terms of the driveway locations and access in and out, the comparator that was looked at for this site was actually if someone was doing a coffee kiosk or a food cart in Sisters, which the ODOT response was in terms of size and in terms of the way the building is laid out, that was the most equivalent layout. But in traffic flow, the estimate there from ODOT was in Sisters, it was 50 peak hour trips for traffic a day along Highway 126 in Sisters. And there's no way that that's going to happen here. And that was their ODOT's response to the city. I think it would be a good day if you had half that amount and any peak hour. And daily traffic, I would guess at most will be 150 to 200 vehicles per day, which if you spread that out over an 8-hour time period, you're talking a couple vehicles every 5 minutes.
I have a question.
That would be on constant.
Have you considered the truck traffic?
In fact, that is the fifth drawing. Because they kept on wanting to put curbs through everything and curve everything in. And that's the best I can get for like a pickup with a trailer.
Is there going to
I
be,
did that so many times because almost everybody drives big pickups and
well, I'm talking about semi trucks.
semi trucks. I didn't even do that, so they're just.
Well, I'm thinking, is there room along
There's
the
no room. No. There's no.
highway
stop.
for them to pull off?
No. They're just gonna have to watch it go by or stop in front of Chevron and walk over. Yeah, there's no way.
I'll park on first.
First. That's it.
You and I said it at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Take a different route. There's no way.
yeah, come over on first and park and walk over.
I just assume it's not for them. It's gonna end up being for people driving from work and to work. That type of thing.
So traffic was the issue, and as Jason indicated, I looked at least two drawings that had different layouts for the parking. And one of the things we talked about with the engineer early on was getting the pickups with someone pulling a trailer in and out of there to be able to get through. And the most logical way for someone to get into the site, if they had that, was to come off of J Street. That's the simplest way to get in. Doing a U-turn within the parking lot coming off of Highway 99. You can do it with a single pickup. It will be much more challenging if you're pulling a trailer. Won't mean people won't try.
But the next time they'll know better.
In response to Jeremy's comment, could you turn the food cart area into an RV park? And the answer is no, it's not a permitted use within this area. So that's not allowed.
Despise them.
Even if you loved them, it's not permitted. So that is not an option. As far as traffic and parking on the street, I think the biggest challenge that could come up, and I did do some thinking about it, but it really is not in the city's criteria. They met the parking standards, they met the number of spaces for the coffee kiosk, which has essentially 1 or 2 employees. And the food cart business, most communities don't add that much additional parking space for customers in the food cart area because it's so transitory. The concern would be during events. If Halsey was having a community event or if there was an event on site, I think because you don't have parking on Highway 99 right next to it, you probably will see people parking on the side streets, and if they're walking into the food cart pod. And whether that happens on a regular basis or an occasional basis really depends on the popularity of the facility and how quickly they develop out the number of food cart pod spaces. If they've got 2, I don't think there's going to be much of an issue. If they have 10,
I'm just thinking in my head, there's probably gonna be 2 within the next 2 years. I mean, I don't really see it filling up with food cart business.
yeah, I don't see this as being similar to what you see at the food cart pod that's in Albany or the one in Salem off of Lancaster Drive, where you have 10 or 12 food carts and then there's a building inside that people can go and park eat inside a building, get a drink.
Well, that's kind of what I thought, but the fact that it's on there, I thought, now it's the time to bring it up.
Yeah, it says the eight food trucks.
Junction City.
And so you're. The idea that he's thinking big,
Right,
and it's just like, which is fine, but then the parking was little. So it didn't weigh out right.
so the answer is, did we think of that in the review? Yes. Is there an issue that it could be an issue for neighborhood streets if it builds out?
10-15 years.
Yeah, it could, you could have additional traffic that's gonna affect the neighborhood at that point in time. And I'm not sure that's necessarily a bad story for the community. It may not be as much fun as a neighbor.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I understand that. And you can't write the code for all situations.
So, but
And I did have one other question. Is there a plan for a alcohol distribution permit?
No, I don't know, I plan on breakfast foods and.
Okay.
No, because if you have alcohol, you usually have trouble, and you usually have people that wanna hang out there. And I don't, in my head, I don't see that, I want them get their food, leave, get their food, leave, more like a. Community, just the in and out, let's fast food
Kind of hours,
as a coffee shop.
and the coffee shop and the food courts.
Food carts, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean,
I
these
just-
are more of just a way to fill the space
Okay,
and sort of keep things clean and neat.
okay.
Coffee shop will be really more.
So I'll give it-
Really works, okay.
Jason, do you have anything else you would like to add?
The lighting, I did think of the lighting, I noticed it hadn't been on the plan, and. Being a lighting person, I do know that it's gonna be down lighting, so it's not gonna be casting on anybody's houses or anything. And I would imagine that I'll have some at the bathroom, I'll have one at the first. Trailer or food cart spot, most of them will be facing straight down and facing more angled towards the main road. Away from the houses. And it won't be as bright as the ones on this building. It'll be down.
Unless there's any other testimony, we'll close the public hearing, and now is an opportunity for the planning commission to review the staff report, ask me any final questions, and then make a decision to either approve or deny the application.
How long has he been working on this project? I wonder.
How long has-
Can we ask him that now?
A year and a half.
Okay.
And, well, $55,000 in fees so far. That's the
How
cost
much?
of land, about 55,000 spent.
So you're invested.
Super. I didn't realize it's quite as much as.
Okay, at the end of the staff report, there are a couple of sample motions. If the,
You know what page it's on?
do I know what?
Because I was looking through here and I couldn't find it.
It should be on
City
page,
planner can, 18,
yeah, it should be on page 22.
22.
So the planning commission has, there are several options for motions. One is approval as drafted. The second would be to approve the proposal with a modified condition. And I did mention that I modified condition 1 to reference the city engineer's report in compliance with that. Or the planning commission could, if you feel like you need to take more time to consider this, you could postpone the decision for another meeting. And lastly, you have an opportunity that if you don't feel like it complies with the city requirements, you could deny the proposal and either tell the applicant to come back with revisions or deny it and the application is dead. So my recommendation to you is to approve with modified conditions of approval.
I move to approve with modified conditions. The plan.
Okay, so let me repeat that so it's in the record. Your motion would be to approve the site design plan for Capital Coffee Kiosk and Food Pod site. And to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions, and to direct the staff to modify the findings of fact and conclusions to reflect the discussion that occurred at this meeting. Is there a second?
Second,
You can take your pick.
Ellen, he said second, I said yes.
So
age before beauty.
Keep telling me that.
It's either Mitch or Eldon.
Pardon? See one either way.
All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, and Ken, could you make sure that you would indicate yes or no clearly for us?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is approved 5-0. There are no persons against the proposal. And thank you all for coming to the hearing, and thank you, Jason, for the submittal. The process at this point is I issue a written notice of decision that goes to Jason, and we'll make sure that Brianna or Audrey at City Hall gets copies to the two of you, to the two households who testified, so you get a copy of that decision. There is an opportunity to appeal if someone is dissatisfied and they participate in the hearing process, which agencies, as well as anyone who attended here today. If they wish to appeal it, they can appeal it to the city council and pay the appeal fee and process, and then the city council would be required to hold a public hearing on it and consider the application. If no appeal is filed within the, I think it's 10-day period after my letter goes out, then the decision is final, and Jason has 1 year in which to fulfill the conditions of approval. And if he doesn't do that and it lapses, the decision is void after that 1 year period. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you, Planning Commission members, for coming out for an evening meeting. Thanks, Brianna, for setting it all up. And thank you all for testifying. Great time. Any other issues before the Planning Commission, or can we adjourn the meeting?
I don't have it.